When I was a little kid growing up, I had a great mom and dad. My mom loved me a lot. My dad would give me anything. It was kind of a detriment because it never occurred to him to discipline. I mean, he would give anything. And but I had three brothers. One of them, he had schizophrenia, and he was bipolar, and he would go off. And there was times he would beat the windows out the house. He would beat my mom. He set my dad on fire. He pushed me in the glass when I was 5. I was on my horse. He fed it hot sauce while I was on it. There were times when I got older when I had enough and I fought him. And when I'd fight him after it was said and done, he'd go find the biggest knife he could, and I had to run and hide. My earliest memories of childhood were in the closet, crying, begging God to heal me. And that's from 5 till I was 13. And he wasn't bad, he was just messed up. And it was just a bad situation, but I was still happy with my mom and my dad. They did everything they could. They never even fought in front of us, nothing. But it was just crazy. And moving on, I grew up a little bit and I started going to the ghettos. And I had problems there. You know, I was probably 12, 13. I was drinking quarts of Old English, and I would have so many bottle caps I'd save that my book bag would be heavy. And I would go down there, and one day a guy came up to me and pulled a knife on me. And at 12 years old, I told him he wasn't gonna do nothing. He might as well stab me if he's going to or get away from me. And he didn't do anything, so that it boosted me up to where I thought I was invincible. At 13, I started smoking weed. My mom and dad had split up. I moved to Orlando with my dad, and I ended up going to an alternative school that had padded cells in the classroom. People were setting desks on fire. You could walk around smoking weed. They were snorting cocaine on the desk in class. And I eventually quit that. I just quit the school at 16. I ended up doing coke, ecstasy, heroin, Rohypnol, Xanax, pain meds, any drugs I could get my hands on, and I wasn't doing small amounts. We were doing ounces of cocaine every 2 days. I had 50 to 100 Rohypnols in my pillow. We didn't do anything in moderation, and it was me and my brothers. We had our own room just for it, and it was an everyday thing. I'd get off of school, come home, and do drugs. And I mean, it was bad, but I loved it. Eventually, I ended up getting a girlfriend, and she had a bunch of girls that were friends. And we were all laying in the bed, and one of them said she wanted to make some money. So I started a prostitution ring. I had 7 females working for me. I thought it was cool, but it wasn't. I eventually stopped because I felt like I was disrespecting somebody's sister, their mom, one day, you know, and it was just dead wrong. But before I stopped, I went out to a place they called the Bottoms, and I met with a bunch of drug dealers that were supposed to be purchasing the services. And my girlfriend was with me, and she wandered off. I went to go find her, and when I found her, she was smoking crack. And I said, B, take me home. And this guy was like, don't call her that. I was like, I'll call her what I want. She's gonna take me home. I just called her smoking crack. Well, he was probably 30 something. He reached up and hit me with a bottle in my lip and knocked me out. And somebody led me down the street under a street light. When I came to, I felt my lip hanging off, and I went back. I said, which one of y'all hit a 15-year-old with brass knuckles? Why couldn't you just fight me? And he said, leave. Shh. Well, I went to walk away, and he shot, and it hit me and shot me in the leg. I fell over, my leg collapsed, and I told him, I'm shot, get me to the hospital, I won't tell him. He said, you're not shot. I showed him the blood. He paid $300 for my girlfriend to take me to the hospital. She took me to a phone booth and dropped me out and went back and smoked crack. My dad came and got me. I ended up in a hospital. I was cussing. It hurt so bad. And the people were looking at me really weird, and I couldn't figure out why, but I looked back and there was a huge cross under the bed. I was in a Presbyterian hospital in Orlando. And I should have changed then, but I didn't. I ended up having girls come to the room while I was in the hospital, smoking weed, playing video games, acting like it's a hotel room. And I really should have changed then. But I got out and I went back to the bottoms and seen one of my friends, and we were talking, drinking, and I told him, I'm gonna get Angel. I'm gonna get him back for shooting me. And he was like, don't do that. That's silly. And his name was Charlie. I was like, no, I'm gonna get him. I laid up for days watching and watching and watching. And I went to one of my friend's house and they said, what's wrong with you? Don't you know Charlie's the one that shot you? So I was sitting there with the man that shot me, telling him I was gonna get even. And this man didn't play. It was a couple weeks later, he shot another guy 2 times in the chest over throwing a brick of weed at him. And he ended up going to prison for that. And one of the best things that's ever happened in my life is when he got out, I went with a drug dealer friend of mine to go sell something to him, and he seen me, and he was shaking. And I said, your name's Charlie, right? And he was like, yeah. I said, it's okay, I forgive you. I know you didn't mean to do it, it was an accident. And that just made me feel so good, and it's always stuck with me. There's been a time that my brother was out with his kid, and his girlfriend had disappeared. He found her with another guy, and the guy pulled a gun on him and tried to run him over. And me growing up, you do something like that, you basically should have killed my brother, because now we're gonna get you. And we kidnapped that guy. We beat him for 3 days. His head was swollen to the size of a basketball. He couldn't see out of his eyes. I eventually took him home and told him, you know, I have 3 other brothers, so if you tell on me, one of them's gonna come get you. And he eventually became a friend, but he died of an overdose. After all that said and done, I started messing up so bad. My dad moved to Lake County, Florida. So I went with him, and I got strung out on heroin there, bad. And from heroin, I moved on to selling meth for a friend. And when I was selling, I started using, and I actually had the drug task force come, and they couldn't do nothing with me, but I had set for 6 hours on the front lawn in handcuffs while people did what they did, and it was just kind of embarrassing, but it still didn't change. From all that, my mom had heard what I was doing, and she called me and told me, I put a life insurance policy on you because I know you're gonna die. Wow. And I moved to Georgia. And when I got here, my mom had bought me a house. I was in Greston, and I had no car, and there were no grocery stores, there was no convenience store but one, and that's the only place you had to go. There was no work, so I started selling drugs again. And the Dodge County Police got wind of it, and they came to raid my house with every cop car you could find. And I had an 1800s Rabbit Ear side-by-side shotgun hanging on the wall without a firing pin or a trigger. Not considered a firearm. I went to prison for 2 years over that. And in prison, I seen some stuff. I mean, basically in prison, everybody thinks it's bad, but if you do drugs, prison's one of the best times you could ever have. There's the best drugs there, there's cell phones, there's cigarettes, if you don't owe nobody, if you don't get in anyone's business, you're not gonna have problems. And you can just treat it just like the outside world. I was running around selling drugs in prison. And I met a guy that I had met years before, and he was my roommate. And he kind of got me into his group. He was SAB, which is the Southern Area Brotherhood. And I didn't join in prison because I didn't want people to think I was joining for protection. But I did join eventually. But while I was in prison, I moved to another prison. I moved to 3 different prisons because they kept putting me in the hole and I wouldn't come out. There was no reason to come out. So they have to move you. And they moved me to the next prison, and I met AB. And when I did, the Bloods were running protection, and they wanted me to pay protection. And I told them I'm not, I'm affiliated, which means you don't have to, and they can't bother you. If they do bother you, then it could start a war. Well, they left it alone, but my roommate said, oh, I'll pay for them. I said, no, you won't. Well, they took that seriously, and they came to people I was under, And the people I was under was like, well, we gotta take care of this, you're gonna have to pay them. And I'm not paying them. And I went and got a big piece of a metal fan, and I was going to stab them, and my people jumped on me and told me, no, you can't do that, which is really wrong. If you live in that world, you should stand up for yourself, and it makes you look bad, but I couldn't do that. The brothers that jumped me ended up getting put in the hole. And I guess it was my fault because they got caught for assaulting me. But I moved on and got out of prison. And when I got out of prison, I had 3 months left on parole. I got caught. I was at a friend's house with a lockbox full of drugs and a 25 pistol. And my parole officer and the drug task force came and kicked in the door. I ran, I threw the gun, I threw the box. They found the box, they found the gun, they charged me with the gun. They gave the box to the people that called on me, full of drugs. They opened it, they knew it had drugs in it, they knew it had my food stamp card in it. And a friend gave me my food stamp card when I got back out. That's how I know they gave the drugs and the case away to the people that told on me. Eventually, the gun charge, it got dropped. It went away, and I thought I should get out of trouble, but I didn't. I ended up selling meth even heavier. There was a boy that I thought was my friend, and he was in the backseat of the car telling turn by turn where I was going to the drug task force. Well, they pulled us over. When they did, I ate 14 grams of meth. I had a 5% chance to live, but I still walked out the next day. They airlifted me from Dodge County to Lawrence County, and I didn't even know what happened until I got locked up again. And a good friend of mine that was an officer, he told me, I didn't even think you were gonna be here. They said you have 5% chance to live. Well, I should have learned then, but I didn't. I went riding again, and I went to a friend's house, and this girl called me for something, and she was downstairs. I looked out the window, I was in the bathroom, I didn't see nothing. So I heard a knock on the door. I was still in the bathroom, I heard the door kick, and I threw the marijuana I had, which they never found, I don't know why, but I threw it, but I ate 7 grams. The task force took me to their office, and I started shaking uncontrollably, and my teeth started chattering back. The officer, one of them, his name's Boatwright, he's a really good guy, but you know, he's probably not by the book. He said, you want some crackers, you want some water? He tried to take care of me, but there was another one that had just gotten in trouble for shooting someone in Dublin, and he got moved over there. And I passed out because you can do something called overamping. When you take too much methamphetamine, your body just shuts down. You don't have to die, but you just go into like a sleep almost. But I fell out, and when I was coming to, I heard the one officer say, is he still breathing? And the one that had gotten in trouble said, we should just let him die. And there was nothing I could do about that. They weren't supposed to take me to jail. They said they took me to jail. It didn't matter, I needed to be there. But I didn't want to be in trouble no more. I ended up doing a lot of time on that too. I didn't charge with nothing, I just had to sit. But I went back to my mom's, and there's no opportunities in Eastman when you don't have a car. And she didn't have time, my stepdad didn't have time to take me places because they have their own lives. And I was old enough, I should have been able to do it anyway. But I ended up back in jail again, and when I got out of jail, I was running around with an AB brother I had met in rehab. He came to me without even knowing me, and ended up, he was good friends with a girl I grew up with in Orlando that had moved up here. And I got in with him and got really, really heavy in AB. He's pretty high up. He turned his life over now too, but once you remember for life. So he's probably still a member. I'm still tattooed, and I should take the tattoos off. I have swastikas, I have the SS bolts, but I'm not gonna take them off because that's part of my story. And if I'm talking to a kid, I don't want them to think that I don't know what I'm talking about. If you go to school, you're not gonna learn from a teacher who never went to school. You're not gonna care what they have to say, and I want them to know. And it doesn't embarrass me at all because I've never been racist, and in the bylaws it says that you're not supposed to hate any man. You're just supposed to support the white race and advance it if you can, which there is none of that. There's no drugs allowed, no drug sales allowed. You're supposed to respect police unless they disrespect you. None of that happens. There's guys selling kilos and they live in houses with no windows or no doors. And they have no money. It just doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be selling in the first place because they're killing their own people and everyone else. But I kept going with him, and I had warrants again, and he was taking really good care of me. He was a good guy. But he ended up dropping me off. I ended up in Lawrence County again with the guy I was in prison with, Mud. He was a really good guy, and he treated me really well, like family. And I ended up, there was a girl that kept taking advantage of things, and she stole some bank account information, so I loaded up some tools. And I was gonna blame it on her so they would get rid of her finally. Well, he came back, and somebody had told him I had him. He came and found me. And he said, "Where's that sorry MFer?" And I said, "I'm right here." And he hit me in my head with a pistol. When I fell to the ground, I don't know why. If I get hurt really bad, I don't cry, I don't get upset. If I get a paper cut, I get upset. I cry. But I picked up his holster and tried to chase him down to give it back to him. He thought I was crazy, but I lost that friend forever, even though he was a gang member. He was a good person. But from there, I went back. I got back with the gang. I went even harder. We were making trips all over the state. This is the most places I've ever been is when I got to Georgia because we went everywhere. We went for protection and collection. If somebody owed drug money, we were to go collect it. If somebody needed somebody to go with them because they felt unsafe, we would go with them. There's been times when Ghostface and AB don't really get along, and there was a prison war at the time. Well, Matt Tater, he took me to a place up in Atlanta and left me at a house, and it was full of Ghostface. I was by myself. I had a knife, and on the way out the door, he said, "Yeah, this is my ghost buster," which that was kind of crazy. That meant I had like 20 people right then that knew that I was there, and AB is the most violent gang in America, period. There's 1% of the prison population that's AB, but they do 90% of all crimes, any crimes. If somebody even says something about fighting you or disrespect, you're not supposed to fight them, you're supposed to try to kill them. You want the next person to not even come and try to hurt you. They want to be afraid. And most of the guys are like that. There's some good ones, but they're not really good. They're pretty evil. But I ended up getting called to a state meeting, and we went there, and one of the guys I actually had known before he was the head. He's still the head now, but it was supposed to be a good thing. And I get there, and this guy pops up, and it's the guy that got put in the hole in prison with me for assaulting me. And he said, "Don't I know you?" I was like, "Nope." Not me. Yeah, and he eventually figured it out, and they wanted to see my prison rap sheet because I told them I went to Coastal, not Jackson. And they seen it, and the solution was me and this guy that was probably 6'4", 3-something, solid. He did steel gutters. We went out back. And you gotta fight. If you don't fight, you're done. If you fight and fall, you get up. If you can't get up, you're done. I overswung, and when I did, I just grazed his chest, and that's the last thing I remember. He beat me so bad. I had 3 broken ribs, bruised lungs, broken nose, broken eye socket. It was bad, but I still didn't learn. But I was kicked out. I was blackballed. That was the end of it. But Matt didn't see it that way, so I still ran around as AB. Now I can't run around as AB. If I do, they'll probably try to come find me and kill me. They really will. It's over with for me, which it hurt for a long time because that was my life. That really was. You put your brothers before everything, because if you put your brothers before everything, that means they have to put you before everything. But it doesn't work that way. Drugs are before everything. Period. That's all there is to it. And all the non-racism, it's not true either. I mean, they hate everybody, and the only people they don't hate, but they still talk about, are Mexicans, because Mexicans have good drugs. And from there, though, I went to Houston County because I didn't want to be around anymore, because it hurt to be around where, in Douglas, where the main force of ABG is. And I went to Houston County, and I had heard a couple months earlier, one of my friends was like, listen, there's a safe here, it's got 80 grand. I don't know what else, but I know it's got 80 grand. I was like, all right, but I just forgot it. When I got there, not thinking about it, he takes me to the place, and I didn't even know it, and we ended up staying there. It was a mansion. And the guy, he had Asperger's, but he did drugs 24/7. He walked around naked 24/7, and he walked around naked doing things in front of you 24/7. And you couldn't say nothing, because if you did, he probably wouldn't want you there, and we had nowhere to go. So we just dealt with it. I just didn't look. But it made me mad, and I felt like I could get even. So one day when he left, I took the garage door opener, because he would lock us out when he left, and I opened the garage door. Me and him went in. He had a rare earth magnet that you're supposed to be able to stick to safes, but we didn't know how to do it. And I worked for my brother's safe company, so I did know that every safe, no matter what, if you can push it and it'll fall, it'll open. So we pushed it, it fell, it opened. There was 80 grand in cash, guns, gold, $1 million in bonds, and I took it. And there were some checks too. I ended up taking everything else and putting it away, because you couldn't really sell bonds or nothing like that, but you can sell them as art, so I was gonna sell them as art. And a guy came and stole the stuff. He ended up cashing 2 checks. I ended up with warrants for identity fraud. And I sat in jail for 2 years that whole time. The whole time I was in there, we did Bible study. We did everything we could to try to better ourselves. A coach would come, that's the minister for the Bulldogs, and he would talk to us. There was a lot of good people, but it started turning me towards God. But I knew that I had to change. While I was in there, it was getting bad, but it wasn't as bad. My nephew, he was about to graduate. He drowned, and he couldn't swim. And it bothered me to be locked up, but it didn't bother me as bad as it should. From that point, I just went on about my life. But then it was Christmas, and the one thing I always knew since I was little was I was gonna be in jail when my dad died. But I didn't know my dad had cancer, and he didn't tell nobody. He didn't go to the doctor or nothing. And he had finally wasted away, and he passed away on Christmas, which I just wanted to know if he had heard a Christmas song. And for some reason in my head, a Christmas song played. And then I spoke to God and said that I wish that I would have got to hold him and tell him I love him. And I felt my dad's arms come around me, and I knew that he was there, and he said he was all right. But from there, it was bad. I tried to commit suicide so many times. They locked me in a padded cell with nothing but what they call a turtle suit. And they locked me in there. I was in there for 9 months, and there was nothing. You don't get books, anything. Some officers would sneak me books. They'd sneak me extra food, different food, outside food. But they ended up sending me somewhere, and it was pretty good. But it was only for 7 days, and it was right back to the padded cell. Eventually, they let me out of that, and I was only allowed to be in a cell by myself, no matter what. But I was around other people. In that time, my mom called and let me know my brother Mike had died. He died. He died from cirrhosis of the liver, which caused by hepatitis from shooting up. And he passed away. I didn't even get to talk to him. And me and him were really close. But I had lost 3 people while I was in jail, and I just knew that I didn't get a chance to make my dad proud while I was in there, so it was time to do that. When I got out, I was scared I was going to go back to the same thing. So I called every rehab I could find. Even though I had been clean for 2 years, I didn't want to go back. So, but most of them wouldn't let you smoke, and I wasn't going to do that. And then a lot of them, they wanted money, and then there was one, they had asked me, have you ever applied for Social Security disability? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we can't take you. And I mean, I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but I had called around and I ended up asking my probation officer, and he put me in touch with a guy, and he ran a church in Eastman, and he told me, well, there's a little place in Garfield, and it's called NBIC, and you can call them. Well, he didn't know I had already called them and been denied. But I called back and gave a different story, and they let me go in. And I stayed there for 3 months. I ended up working for the owners, Donald and Joanna, and become like family to them. And I just did good things, and it changed me. The day that I got an opportunity to go to work for a good company that only works people from there, I went down there at nighttime and excused myself for interrupting their dinner, but told them, hey, if it's possible, I'd like to go to work. It's not for long, it's for a few days, and I'll be back, but I'd like to try to go to work. And they said they respected that. And Mr. Donovan said, I see good things for you. I just hope you keep on, have a good, and basically he was telling me that he wouldn't see me at the house working again. I was like, hold on, I didn't say I was leaving. But I ended up staying with that company. And in that time, I had just been trying to focus on myself, and I wasn't worried about anything that I used to worry about. And I was friends with a guy. He seemed all right, but he was struggling, and he was showing me a lot of things he shouldn't have, pictures of girls, pictures of bank accounts with a lot of money, guns in his boot. And I just figured he wasn't ready yet, but he was still good. But he ended up failing a drug test and going to jail. And the day he went to jail, they owed me $500. I walked in and seen his ex-wife and him. She was crying, he was crying. I told him, don't worry about the $500. Well, when he left, I packed his stuff for him. I talked to his ex-wife for a minute. I did everything I could. I put money on the jail phone. He would call me and ask me, hey, can you send me money so I can buy cigarettes? All right, I'll send it. Well, after like 3 times, I was like, look, I've given you like $600-700. I can't do it anymore. And he told me, listen, I love you. I'll never ask you again. Well, he stopped calling. But his ex-wife had called me and told me that they needed to clean up his truck to get him out. So I told her to come to Garfield, and I cleaned the truck. I cleaned it good. And at the time, she was outside of the rec room talking to some guys, and I got jealous for some reason. I don't know why. It's just I felt like she was a good woman, and I didn't know why I couldn't be talking to her because I was over here cleaning the truck. I ended up talking to her a couple times after that, and I talked to her one day, and I was going with a guy that was in the program's girl to talk because he was messing up again. And she had asked me, well, what are you doing? I was like, well, I gotta leave right after I clean the truck. I'm leaving with Blake. And I lied. I said I was leaving with the guy, not the girl. Well, the friend I had, that was his ex-wife's, whatever, but he had talked to her and said, yeah, he's going with this person's girlfriend. And she got kind of mad when she talked to me, and she was like, whatever. I'm not worried about it. You could tell she was, and I was so hurt. It didn't even make sense because we're not supposed to be together. We're just supposed to be friends, but I felt like I lost my whole world. And she kept playing games. She would say something, and it would lead me to believe that there was a chance, and she'd be like, see, I told you, women and men just can't be friends. I'm like, come on, you're doing this to me, you're setting me up. Eventually, though, we did end up trying. She would come to Garfield and pick me up at the grad house, and it was really good. We would just go do normal things that I'd never done and sit and talk and just go out to eat. And we got together as a couple, and I posted on Facebook, and NBIC found out, and they said they thought it would be best if I left. So I moved in with her, and about 2 months later, we got married. And my life has never been so good, honestly. I have a job that I love. I get paid really well. I work as many hours as I want to, which is a lot. I have no problems. I have a great church. I have all y'all. I have good things happening every day. There's nothing in my life that's bad. Even the bad times are better than any times I've had before. Yeah. Honestly, I've been stabbed, shot, I've slit my wrists, I've cut myself hundreds of times, I've ate glass, I've drank bleach. I've tried so many times to kill myself. It's not funny, and God won't let it happen, period. He won't. There's no reason for me to be alive. I ate so much meth that I should have died instantly. That's just 14 grams. It's not normal. I've done cocaine at one time. It's like 1 gram is a lethal amount. I've done 3 times that at one time, one sitting, not one after the other, just at one time. I overdosed on heroin because it was fentanyl. I overdosed 3 times. The 3rd time I decided I didn't want to do heroin anymore. Honestly, that was the only way I could get clean from it, because if it wasn't fentanyl, I would have did it forever until I got arrested. And when I did get arrested in Houston County, it was God then too, because I've never been caught with drugs, period. And when I got caught this time, I had a gram in my hand I could have ate, and for some reason I just kept holding it. And I tried everything I could to get out of it, and the cops were gonna let me go, and they were like, well, what's that in your hand? I was like, yep, here you go. And that's what got me arrested, and let them find out the rest of the stuff. But I sat for 2 years on that, and to be honest, no matter what great times I thought I had, I've spent since 1999 every day in jail or prison, except for about 3 months off and on. So I've been locked up the whole time, and I've been with numerous gangs. I've been in shootouts since I was 13. I've been shot at and shot back. I've seen friends kidnapped. I've kidnapped people. Just everything bad that you can do, I excelled at. And I'm just so thankful that now I don't have to do that. I go to sleep every night not wondering what I'm gonna go do, or who I'm gonna go hurt, or how I'm gonna collect money. I don't have to worry about anything. It's all God. It is. And that's the only explanation for it, because when I chose to go to Garfield to NBIC, that was the best decision ever, because there is no AA, NA there. There are no drug classes. Every once in a while you look at that, but it's 17 meetings a week. That's nothing but church. Wow. And it's the greatest thing ever. If you actually try at it, I've got so many friends that are doing so good now. Wow. My friend Justin, that's like my brother, he's just doing great. And then Matt Taft, he came here, and at my wedding, he's running his own farm with his family and a sawmill, and he's just doing good things every day. And the few people that I seen graduating that weren't serious about it, they're in jail. They're doing drugs again. It's bad, and some of them I had to cut off. One went back to witchcraft and is doing drugs again, and it just doesn't make sense to me, because where I chose to go one way, it's ended up in nothing but great things. Great things for real, because nothing I do, no matter how bad it gets, it's not bad. It might be bad to y'all because you haven't been through some crazy stuff, but to me, it's good. It is. It can be the worst day you have. I'm thankful for it. Right. I don't have to worry about somebody shooting me. I don't have to get in a car with brothers that are supposed to be, my gang brothers, and worry, are they taking me down the street to kill me because I'm not this or that, because I'm not really racist? What are they gonna do to me? And that's awesome. Now I just gotta worry about Melissa beating me because I can't hear her. Because I yell at the kids too much or punish them too much. And I don't want them to turn out like me, because she's got some really good kids, she does. And the one that catches it the most is the one I think is gonna do the best, honestly. My whole life is just different. I actually feel like a parent, a father, a person. Not like I was before. We pay bills. We pay them in advance, months in advance now. I used to not even care about bills. Who cares? Somebody else will pay it. I'll just go stay with them. That's really all I got. I want to thank y'all for inviting us in. And from the day I met John, I knew that I had to be a part of his life and him be a part of mine. Honestly, I knew it. And when they kicked me out of NBIC, They really just asked me to leave. It wasn't mean. We still talk, and it's still one of the greatest places I've ever been. But it sent me here, and that's why they asked me to leave. I know it, so I can come here. I love y'all. I appreciate it.